Hey everyone, welcome back to Cheddar, brought to you by HP. There's big news this week in the esports and online gaming world. Here to talk about the two major developments today is Amish Shah. He's the founder of esports infrastructure services company ReKTGlobal and founder of VC firm Sierra Maya 360. Amish, good to see you again.
Hey, great to be back on, talking some fun fantasy sports and esports, two of my favorite subjects.
All right, well, fun maybe not for these two companies, DraftKings and FanDuel, calling it off. A lot of speculation that this probably wouldn't have gone through on Thursday. We did learn that they planned their merger, and actually they called off their planned merger after the FTC said it would represent a 90% control of the market, a monopoly. So what will happen to both of these companies now?
So great question. You know, it's unfortunate to see that they weren't able to pull it off because they were losing a lot of money. What's going to happen further? I think there's three aspects we want to talk about. There's the business aspect, right? What does this mean for FanDuel and DraftKings moving forward? A lot of people know they're in a lot of litigation from state legislation where they were banned in New York in the past. The Federal Commission came through after the merger, pretty much said they'd stop it, and now they got to pivot. They were all gung-ho, taking over 90% of the market if the merger went through. Now they got to go back to being independent, and here we are, right before football season, the biggest marketing revenue time for them, where they got to go back and spending. I mean, they were bleeding cash, spending, and try to outspend each other to try to be number one. So moving forward, it's going to be interesting to see the business side, to see where they go from here. I think they're going to innovate. They're going to innovate with some new potential games. They're also going to get in for the consumers, and they're promising not to lower prices, but I'm a little curious to see what happens on how it's really going to act on the consumer here.
You mentioned advertising, of course. DraftKings in September 2015, if we think back to just about a couple years ago, watching football at that time, every other commercial was for one of these companies. It seemed like DraftKings was, in September 2015, the biggest TV advertiser in the country. Really what I'm wondering, is the market big enough for both of these companies to operate independently and be healthy?
The market is big enough, and the reason why is not only is it here big in the U.S. and North America, they're expanding internationally. They're also getting into other games and other sports. I think we're going to see them more in like the drone racing league, which is really hot and on ESPN right now. You're going to see them more get into esports. You're going to see them get into the WNBA. You're going to see them go global. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you're in India and you could do this with cricket. You know, so there's a big enough market, not just for them to be independent, but to make a lot of money and be very successful. My biggest challenge, question, concern here with them is they were spending a lot of money. You mentioned it right there in 2015. How do they maintain, you know, the leading edge there and stop bleeding? I think they're bleeding cash, and they're not even profitable yet. So that's one of my biggest concerns.
Now, the other concern always with deals like this is what happens to the company's employees. Usually with the merger, you do have job redundancies, which creates a lot of job cuts. But now that they are going to remain independent, does that mean that jobs are safe now? What can you tell us from this perspective?
Yeah, so another great question. From what I've heard, FanDuel was actually one of my clients from 2011 when they came here in 2017 from Scotland. And I actually have a company called Millennium Search, which is a high-tech recruiting firm. So we helped build a lot of those early folks. They're still there. So there's a lot of those folks that are still there in the product side, et cetera. You know, I'm going to say it's a wait-and-see mode. There's no black and white answer to that. If anything, I see them getting more growth capital and to actually hire more people. Because one of the things this merger was going to do is have them share in product development, have them share on advertising. So I actually think you may see them actually hire and more jobs being created because the merger didn't go through.
One of the issues that these companies were facing were regulatory pressures and also the differences in regulations in each state. I know they faced a lot of issues here in the state of New York. And a lot of that was brought on, my understanding is by lobbyists on behalf of the casino industry and worried about that they were taking business from the casino industry and the gaming industries. Would you consider this a win for the casino industry?
You know what? I'm going to say temporarily, yes. The challenge now is millennials are not really going to casinos, right? And the millennials are the ones that really love this. I mean, yes, anyone that's 40, 50, 60 years old watching Sunday football, but the daily fantasy players, most of them are millennials and the younger generation. and that's who the casinos are losing. So I say temporarily, yes. They try to call this a skill-based, which I actually think it's gambling. I mean, you're making a bet, and you're actually getting money back if you win or lose. So, it's a fine line. They're going to still have to pay state legislators to try to get them to be more approved. There's still some states that are just not letting them in right now. So I'd say it is a small win in the war, so I'd say a battle for the casinos, but I'm actually curious to see how this plays out in the future.
Okay, Amish, let's talk esports while we still have you. We don't have a ton of time left, but I wanted to talk about this. Overwatch League. All right. Big deal because Robert Kraft is involved. Members of the Wilpon family, of course, are owners of the Mets are involved. What does it mean that we have this new Overwatch League and the people involved are traditional people who own traditional sports teams?
It's big. It's huge. I mean, I'm a guy that played Atari in 1970s and 80s on up to Sega. I never once thought in my mind that the gaming and esports industry would be this big. This is immense for the esports community, but just sports in general. I talked about millennials. Millennial demographic is what sponsors are after. That's what's exciting about this, right? Sponsors are always trying to figure out how to hit that millennial male and the millennial demographic. That's what esports is. 39 to 43% of the sports fans are esports fans. They're going to find ways to now get more youth, more millennials to the stadiums. This is going to make esports more competitive. I think 20 years from now, I think this is the MLS or NBA or NFL back when they started. So 20 years from now, Robert Kraft may have another Patriots type of dynasty, up in Boston in esports. So this is a massive thing that's going to happen with Riot and League of Legends and a lot of other esports titles throughout the years.
Okay, Amish, we're seeing some pictures right there of the stadiums. Mm-hmm. What do you think these stadiums are going to look like? Are we going to have new stadiums built in cities around the country, or what are they going to do what they've been doing, which is essentially converting existing spaces into esports stadiums?
So hey, great question. The reason I started ReKTGlobal, I'm the founder of the company, is I was talking to a lot of my friends in the sports industry. In fact, you mentioned the Wilpon. Sterling Equities is the owners of Sterling Select, which are actually founders of ReKTGlobal. So they believe in esports. They're invested in skills. They're also in Rekt, and now they just bought a franchise. So what you're going to see here is a lot of renovations to existing stadiums. There's 200 plus nights, let's say, that are available, that are dark at these stadiums. You're going to see new ones that are renovating. We're already talking to the major sports venues, not just in the New York area, but everywhere, on how to renovate, how to be more esports friendly. It's not going to be about selling out like the videos and pictures you're showing, 20,000 seats. It's going to be about building a community, 3,000, 5,000 people, universities. I mean, they're giving scholarships for gamers. People don't even realize there's 30-something schools out there giving scholarships right now. Yes. This is not going to go away anytime soon, and you're going to see college campuses as well have either, a place to play, a stadium. You're going to see Duke, North Carolina, the video game version, right? Yeah. So that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, you wish you could go back to school now and redo that, right? All right, Amish Shah, founder of ReKTGlobal. Thanks again for joining us on Cheddar.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.